hate the word survivor, but because that's what we all do in one way or another. But as a child, I was I was sexually abused for a period of 3 years, from pre-puberty just to the end of puberty. It started toward the end of 6th grade, and it stopped toward the end of 8th grade going into 9th grade. And the first time it happened is it was extremely violent. And I grew up in a very, very rural area and had absolutely no idea that anal sex was a possibility, that I knew about rape, but to me, it didn't seem to be a possibility. This was an adult friend of the family, clearly no friend. He had been hired to babysit me and my siblings while the adults who took care of us were away in Europe. And I believe this was like the second day or so, and it was extremely rural on a farm, and we were swimming in a pond at a far distance. And it started off as a game, and before I knew it, he was, beating on me, pushing on my back, and it was just a very violent rape. At the end of it, he said, what you've done here is a lot worse than stealing a cookie. He said, you better hope that nobody finds out about it. And he walked away and left me there. And I just kind of stayed there for a while. I don't know if it was the shock. I don't know if it was the pain, because there was a lot of pain. There was a lot of blood as well. My face was scratched, my belly was scratched just from the ground. There was definitely a lot of rectal bleeding. I slowly walked back, and there were 2 houses on this farm, and I went to the one in which he was not. And I took the first of about 4 showers that day. And it's funny, walking into the house, I was so sure that my older brothers were going to be able to look at me and tell instantly. And I think that day was probably the first time that I really learned to begin putting up walls, to become an actor, in essence. That happens to have been the first of many, many abuses. It became really bad for me because after about 6 months, I stopped fighting. I realized if I don't fight, I'm not going to get as hurt. And it made sense. It made perfect sense, and it makes perfect sense now. However, as a child in that situation, the minute you make that decision, you become an accomplice. You feel as though, okay, I am now consenting to this. And the fact of the matter is that this monster was manipulative, was controlling, had me in a position where I was frightened that he was going to tell, there was nothing accomplice about it. Unfortunately, as an adult who looks back on trauma, and with the people I've spoken to, they say the same thing. You have that videotape that keeps running in your head, the mental image, or the nightmares that you'll have, and they're all the same, and you're always seeing them from the exact same perspective, and that is exactly where you were when the trauma occurred. And somewhere along the way, I learned to look at it by stepping back and saying, okay, let me be the video camera, and let me see him viciously violate a young boy. And when you look at it that way, you see that it's not a case of being an accomplice. The substance abuse is completely connected to it. I firmly believe that nobody uses a substance to the point of intoxication if they're not trying to kill some kind of pain. From alcohol, marijuana, food, you know, and you know, I look back through all the various stages of my life, those stages of my life when I was healthy, and there were things that I was doing. You know, I've always suffered anxiety. I remember I went through a period where I bought Rolaids at BJ's and the big, huge things. You know, all of it, it wasn't because I wanted to feel good. You know, all of the drugs that I chose were drugs that were meant to numb. It's because I wanted to feel nothing. Feeling nothing was better than feeling the pain. But it doesn't work because, you know, that's treating the symptoms. That's not taking care of what the issue is. I think my first run-in with substance abuse was with alcohol. And I was very young. The first time I got extremely drunk, I was in the 8th grade. And I drank massive amounts that first time. And mostly it was to show off. I was at a party and I really didn't understand what the power of alcohol. So I was drinking very large glasses of straight alcohol. And I enjoyed the attention it got me. All the older kids were like, whoa, come look at this guy. The sickness and the hangover that I suffered from that kept me from alcohol for a good 6 months. But then I began to drink again. And it was an evening thing, an after school thing. It got to the point where I found myself you know, doing shots of Jack Daniels in the bathroom before school, throwing them up, and then saying, oh, you know, I've got to at least keep one down. I can't go to school like this. I can remember at one point I took alcohol to school in an old shampoo bottle that, by the way, I hadn't rinsed well enough. And then somewhere toward the end of 10th grade, I realized that I had a serious problem, and I stopped drinking. However, somewhere around the middle of my senior year of high school, I discovered pot. And to me, it seemed like a much cleaner, much safer way to get a buzz. And I was a pretty heavy pot smoker for about 5 or 6 years. In addition, you know, I think I did acid about 5 times. There was once with angel dust. This was back in the late 70s, early 80s, so there was a drug called the Quaalude, and I used to do that. I preferred those drugs that were more sedating. I did cocaine once or twice and hated it. Speed, I hated it. In retrospect, at the time I would have said, no, I'm just partying, I'm having a good time. But it was definitely more than that. I then pretty much stayed away from substance. I met my wife, got married, finished college, and years went by. And there was nothing. There was no substance abuse whatsoever. And then in the autumn of 1998, I got struck with depression. And it took a long time to get the diagnosis of PTSD. I had never experienced pain like that in my life. And I was put on prescription medications. But it just wasn't killing pain. And I was in a situation where someone had pot, and I had some of it. And for a few hours, the pain was gone. So I was with that person for a weekend, and I smoked pot the entire weekend. And then I continued to use pot, and I got to the point where I was purchasing it. It got to the point where, however, no matter what amount of pot I was smoking, it wasn't enough. And you know, it had been so long since my day of, you know, a nickel bag cost $5 to the prices and quality of what the marijuana is now, or was then. By this time, I think it was, you know, it was probably midway through the year 2000 that this happened. So for a period of about 6 months, maybe even a little less, I was smoking pot. And then it got to the point, I had a very good, well-respected, high visibility job. But it was a job where I just didn't feel safe. And I discovered that I couldn't be there unless I was blazed. So that I would get stoned on the way to work. Anytime I had free time, I would say I'm going out for a drive to have a cigarette, and while I was out, I would get stoned again. It got to the point where I was only content while I was smoking pot. The second I put down whatever paraphernalia I was using, the second I exhaled that last hit, that craving came in again. And, you know, all of the feelings that came back with it. In 1998, I hit severe depression, and you know, I don't think it's necessary to spend a lot of time trying to describe that. It's indescribable. I didn't get a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder for about a year, and then in 2001, I was caught at work with marijuana on me. And at the time, it seemed like the greatest trauma I had ever hit. What it did do, however, was to get me put into a hospital. In addition, they found on me a 6-inch buck knife, and they got me to admit that I had a plan for suicide. And I think that's really where the healing began. I stumbled onto the Seeking Safety therapy quite by miracle. A fax came into the hospital that they were doing research, and they were looking for subjects, and I happened to fit that. And that's how I got involved in the program. First of all, there was the Seeking Safety was critical. It also came at a time when I was seeing for about 2.5 years, I was seeing a therapist who herself had PTSD. And she was brilliant. Both of those things were critical. I also had a very good experience when I was in the lockdown at the hospital. And you know, there were a couple of really good quotes that somebody gave me that I've used a lot. One of them was, yeah, you're right. Life isn't fair, but it's not fair for anyone. And in a twisted little way, that makes it fair. The other was, you own this, baby, it's your life. And you can go on taking the Effexor and the Klonopin and sleeping and waiting for this to go away, or you can start, you know, you could start doing the work. And that almost gave me permission to become very proactive. There's not enough out there written about male sexual abuse. I'm hoping that changes. You know, but the people who have written about it have done a good job, and there are resources. This program is so structured that you know, it keeps you focused, because it is so easy. You know, the human mind is like a puppy on a leash, and something will drag it off somewhere. Uh, this is very focused, whether you are, no matter what stage, you're dealing with at the time. So yeah, I've had some extremely good therapy. I spent a year in AA, for that matter. And even though at that point I was a non-drinker, I found that a lot of it helped both the camaraderie of the group as well as, I wasn't drinking, but it helped me to cope with those cravings. So the first year that whole first year I got my 1-year coin and everything. So yeah, there are a lot of positive things. I would say they outnumber the negative. I had a therapist who I think was just simply not understanding. My first therapist told me that I was suffering from an identity crisis, despite the fact that I really outlaid, not just the sexual abuses, but several other issues from my childhood that I didn't even go into. So that I spent a lot of time working on my marriage with this very first therapist, and he spent a lot of time talking to me, not a lot of time answering, not a lot of time responding. And I've discovered since then with subsequent therapists that a good therapist is going to ask you questions, is going to try to lead you and direct you. A good therapist is going to be gentle and respectful of your space and what you have to say. And this particular person was the sort of man who would leap out of his chair and come toward you. And as a trauma victim, that's enough to send you over the back of the chair. So yeah, if I would say that if you're not comfortable with your therapist, you need to keep looking, because everybody's different. This comes twofold, and the first one is not to give up, because it does get better. It's so impossible to believe that it does. The second one is that you're the one with the power. You're the one who has to do the work. That it's impossible to go to therapy and to do all of this reading and to take the medications and believe that something else is going to fix it for you. So that it's very important to take the bull by the horns, find the strength and say, okay, what am I going to do next to take control over becoming well? And that's extremely important. And to realize that happiness comes in on tiptoe. It doesn't land in your lap all at once. And 4 years down the road, you realize that you just went through a really crappy week that would have put you over the edge 4 years ago, and you feel good. Journaling. This program does commitments, they call it. Let's be honest, it was work. But they're incredibly important, because if you don't spend time outside of therapy doing work to make yourself well, then it's just going to take that much longer. I was lucky enough to be in a position where I was working on becoming well, every waking moment of every day. And that what the therapy sessions were for me were validation that I wasn't a freak, were check-ins to make sure that I was in line and headed the straight way, and also guidance. But it's very important to take an active role in your own treatment.
Before starting this exercise, notice how you're feeling right now. If you were to rate your negative feelings on a 0 to 10 scale, with 10 being the worst, how bad do you feel right now?
About an 8.
About an 8. The reason to rate feelings is to see whether grounding helps to reduce the negative feelings, and then we'll re-rate the feelings after the exercise. Many people with PTSD find grounding very helpful. In grounding, the goal is to turn your attention to the outside world, to shift away from the inner world of negative feelings. You can detach and distance from emotional pain. If you notice yourself focusing on negative feelings, try to let them go like leaves in a fall breeze. Turn away from them, focusing your attention even stronger on the outside world. You may want to think of it as changing the channel, just like a television where you can change the channel to get to a different show. Keep your eyes open the entire time and look around the room as much as you like. Remember that you're always in control and try not to judge anything. Just notice what is. I'll give you grounding instructions for about 10 minutes, and we'll try 3 types of grounding: mental, physical, and soothing. You can see which types work best for you. I'll also be asking a number of simple questions. Please answer the questions out loud.
All right.
Mental grounding. Start by reminding yourself that you're safe, you're here today. Today is Thursday, and we're here in this room. Now try to imagine putting a buffer between you and all of your negative feelings. Imagine that your negative feelings are bundled up and put in a container.
Okay.
Next, think of something that you can put between you and that container of negative feelings. Perhaps it's a wall, a suit of armor, or a big open field in the country. Anything that creates safe distance between you and your negative feelings.
Okay.
What have you put there?
A suit of armor.
A suit of armor.
Yeah.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
Now let's focus on the room. Look around the room, and if you would, name as many colors as you can out loud.
Beige, gold, burgundy, white, green, black. That's about all the colors in here. This room's silver, blue.
Good. Now name as many objects as you can.
Chairs, tables, glasses, pictures, lamps, plants.
Good. Are there paintings or posters? If so, choose one and describe it, not judging it, but just describing everything you can about it. Colors, shapes, content.
The picture here with the woman and the child. Dark colors. Blue. Little girl with a ribbon in her hair. Or pink. Or mauve color. The woman seems like she's holding some kind of umbrella. Or looks like there's a mountain in the background in the picture back there in the shadow.
Good. Good. What color is the carpet?
Burgundy with gold and blue swirls.
And how many doors are there?
2.
Are the lights fluorescent or yellow?
Fluorescent.
What color's the paint on the walls or the wallpaper?
Beige.
Do you see any words printed anywhere in the room on a poster or a book jacket? Like, for example, up on that poster on the left.
Yeah, check in, check out.
Good. Can you read each letter backwards, just
Yeah.
out loud?
Nikchc.
Good.
Yeah.
The reason to read it backwards is just to notice the letters themselves, as if you're seeing the letters for the very first time.
Oh, okay.
Good. Now we'll try naming some facts. Names of cities, as many cities as you can name.
New York, Baltimore, Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, Boston, Miami, Los Angeles.
Good. Now try naming all the sports teams that you can remember.
Patriots, Red Sox, Bruins, Lakers, 76ers. I like basketball. Jets, Eagles, Steelers.
How about TV shows? Just names of TV shows.
I like Seinfeld, King of Queens. I like 2020.
Good.
All right, because I'm not really a TV buff either.
Sure. Now take the number 100 and subtract 5 from that. What's the new number?
95,
Subtract 5 again.
90.
Good. Physical grounding. Now we're going to try some physical grounding methods. Keep following along. If you would, notice your feet on the floor. They're literally grounded, connected to the floor. Wiggle your toes inside your shoes and dig your heels gently into the floor to ground yourself even more. Good. Now touch your chair and tell me anything you can about it. What material it's made of.
Feels like canvas, metal, cardboard. It's cold. That's it.
Good. Now, take this pen, pick it up and hold it, and say everything you can about it. What is it made of?
Plastic.
How heavy is it?
It's not heavy at all. It's very light.
Is it cold or warm?
It's warm, I guess, because it just came out of your hands, but it's warm.
What colors is
Black.
it? Good. Now clench your fists and notice the tension in your hands as you do that. And release your fists. Good. Now press your palms together with elbows to the side. Press as tightly as you can. Focus all of your attention on your palms, and now let go. Now grab onto your chair as tightly as you can, and after a few minutes, let it go. And finally, roll your head around in a circle a few times. Excellent. Good. And now soothing grounding. Let's start with favorites. Think of your favorite color. What color is it?
Probably blue.
Think of your favorite animal. What animal is it?
A dog.
Think of your...
I love dogs.
Good. Wonderful. Think of your favorite TV show. What TV show is it?
Bernie Mac.
Excellent. Think of your favorite season of the year. What season is it?
Fall.
Now think of your favorite time of day. What time of day is it?
Early morning.
Think of a favorite person. It may be someone you know, or it could be a famous person. Picture that person.
That would be my mother.
Good.
It's my girl.
Good. And if you want to, think of a favorite upbeat song and just try and remember the tune and the words.
You want me to sing it?
No, you could just remember it. Good.
I got it.
Now try to think of a safe place. Still keeping your eyes open, think of a place that's very safe, soothing, and calming for you. Maybe the beach, the mountains, a walk in the city, a favorite room, or a park. And if you can't think of a safe place, that's okay too. Just let yourself notice this room since we're safe here. Good. Where is the safe place?
Right now, it's right here. I feel safe right here.
Good. And now try and notice everything you can about the safe place, the colors, the textures, the shapes, the safety and calm of the place.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah.
You've done a terrific job.
Thank you.
Now, if you would, re-rate your negative feelings on a 0 to 10 scale, 10 being the most negative. What number are you at?
Well, I'm not. Well, I have to say 0 right now because I'm not even there at that spot anymore.
Good.
Yeah, I didn't let that go. I lost that when I was looking at the picture. I'd have to say about a 0. 0, yeah, easily.
Good. What did you notice about the grounding? What worked for you? What didn't work for you?
A couple of things. When you asked me to put some distance in between me and the feeling, the armor, that worked. I felt safe from that, but then when I put some distance between it with taking my mind off of it by concentrating on what my surroundings and, the pictures and stuff like that, that really just took my mind off of it. And I felt safe enough to take my mind off of it because I had this armor on. And for me, the armor is like it's a spiritual thing for me because I'm a Christian, I'm a practicing Christian, so the armor for me is the armor that God allows me to have to protect myself and stuff like that. But that's just a protection thing, so now to step away from it, by taking my mind off and taking me out of the picture worked for me, so that was pretty good. And then just the tension thing, because I could feel my body was tense. When I think about stuff like that, I get a little tensed up. So, that exercise works also. I'm better than I thought. Yeah, so it's pretty cool.
Good.
Yeah.
Could you imagine using it when you have a drug craving or feel really angry or really sad or upset?
Honestly, I don't think that when I have a drug craving, that would be as effective. It's a lot to go into, but I don't. When I'm angry or upset, it's easier for me to do that than it is if I'm having the drug craving. I believe if I practiced it more, I would probably be better at it, and it would probably be an easier thing for me to do. But right now, I think there's something that I would have to practice to get better at it.
And that's a great point, because that's exactly it. If you can practice it in times when you're feeling okay and just work with it, then it might be there when you need it.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that. I believe that it could work too. Because like I said, it just took me completely outside of myself. I find that when I have a craving to use drugs, it's usually because I'm thinking about myself or something, I'm locked, and this is a way of like escaping from myself and getting locked in something, separating myself from a feeling, which it worked pretty good right then. So I would imagine that it would work, with practice. It's something I'd be willing to try to do, I tell you that. Tried a lot of other things, and I'm willing to give it a try.
Excellent. Well, you did a terrific job with it.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you for doing this.
Anytime.